Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. In this video I'm going to be doing a tour of my parents' polytunnel. So I've done a few videos on this polytunnel, but I've never done a proper tour, so this will be the first one. And it's a good time to be doing it now because it is the 13th of June and everything's looking pretty nice at the moment. So plant wise, most of the plants have actually been grown from seed. I was up here in January, February and March. So I sowed most of the plants from seed at that time of year. I also helped raise them as little plants, and then my parents have basically looked after the garden since then, and they've just been looking after the plants as they've grown. But it's all looking quite good at the moment. We're starting off here. This is our little production area. You can see quite a few little seedlings. We've got excess tomatoes here. We've also got excess cabbage plants which won't fit out in the garden. And hopefully the camera doesn't steam up too much because it's very hot and humid in here today. I've also got my potting bench, which I've made up in the past with its little things like drawers for the pots. A little hopper here for the compost. But the most interesting thing will probably be the plants. So I'll probably just go in a clockwise direction, so everything. So down here we've got all the strawberry plants. They've been here a couple of years, they're doing quite well. They crop really well in here just because it's so warm and humid. And occasionally there's a few problems with slugs, but generally they do quite well. So on the left here, this was actually full of lettuce recently, so that's why it's so bare, because it's just been transplanted into something else. So we used to have a lot of radish, but this is now going to be mainly just squash plants. You can see this one's quite a young squash, but the flower is absolutely huge. It's really big, lovely flower. See if that's a female flower, that one. You can see the little embryonic squash there starting to swell. Another one down there, but it doesn't look pollinated as it's quite yellow. So we had a lot of coriander here. You can see it's in flower now. My parents harvested most of it, but they're letting it go to seed now so they can grow some more from seed. So this was the section that was all lettuce. You can see we've just planted it with some sweet corn. For some reason all the sweet corn's doing quite bad. This one's doing well, this one's nice and big. But the other ones, for some strange reason, have gone to seed. They've already put out the male flowers and there's no tassels for the female flowers, so they're not going to crop anything by the looks of things. So I don't know what's happened there. Probably because these lettuce were growing so big and they've kind of taken over. You can see they've gone to seed and they've gone a bit large. Over here we used to have spinach. You can see the spinach plant here which has gone to seed as well. But now we're putting out some chili plants. So this is the same chili as mine back in my flat. This is a patchy chili. It does really well. It'll be interesting to see how much better it does in a polytunnel with plenty of soil compared with mine, which is just on the windowsill and doesn't have a lot of space for the soil. So we've got another squash there. The idea is the squash will grow underneath the maize plants there, and it should look quite nice. It should also grow underneath the tomato plants, because by the time that the maize plant, the squash is growing underneath the tomatoes, the lower leaves will have been taken off and there won't be any fruit lower down, so it should be fine. This corn is just finished. There used to be a lot of rocket in this corn. You can see a rocket plant here that's gone to seed, and there was a lot of garlic as well. That's all kind of gone over and finished, and we've got more little maize plants ready to plant out some more sweet corn, and we're going to put some beetroot in as well. You see little beetroot seedlings. The first harvest of beetroot's almost finished. You can see there some nice sizable beetroots there. We've got some more little plants coming up there. So we've got lots of tomatoes. The central bed here is the main tomato production area. There's a very unusual one here. I'm not sure what type it is, but the internodes are very short, so you can see the space between the leaves. It's very short, it's very stunted, kind of gone a bit dwarf. What's also quite weird is I've seen flower stems become like growing stems, but I've never seen a flower stem like this that suddenly just ends in a leaf. So that's quite unusual. I don't know, it might be just a variety. It seems a bit like a mutant. It's a bit weird. So down here we have some pepper plants. My parents are putting in a quick crop, a cash crop of radishes. So you can see the radishes are down there, and that's why this is all smothered. But they'll be harvesting the radishes soon. That'll give plenty more space for these pepper plants. At the moment they are a little bit smothered. So over here, this is a shoofly plant called Nicandra physaloides, and I'll just show you now what it looks like outside, and you'll see the one outside has barely grown at all. That's because it's quite cold in Scotland, doesn't like it that much. But this one here is in the tropics basically, because it's in the polytunnel. You can see how much more this has grown compared with the one outside. The growth is phenomenal. The ones outside are barely grown at all, and this one's really big. It'll be interesting to see how big this is by the end of the summer. I mean, it's only Only kind of in the middle of June. You can see it's already about 2 foot tall, 2 foot wide. I suspect it'll be right up about 5 or 6 foot by the end of summer, so it'll be covered in flowers. Fortunately, I don't think there's any flowers open today to show you. The flowers only last a day or so, but it keeps putting out lots of them. But they're nice little purple flowers, and the seed heads look really pretty. See that one starting to form? It'll dry out and it'll look quite nice. So this is the Nicandra physaloides or shoofly plant that's outside. As I say, it's the same age as the one that's inside, but as you can see, it's absolutely tiny, it's struggling, it's yellow. And in fact, there's 3 plants here. So these plants here have barely grown at all since they germinated, absolutely minute. This one's grown a bit better, and luckily you can see the flower. It's not fully open, it does open more, and it looks really nice when it is open. You can see how much this one is struggling. That's just because it's a lot colder here, not quite as much feed as well. And it is actually a really sunny position. I mean, this gets the midday sun, and it's quite sheltered by this wall, but still that's not enough. And you can see how much it's struggling, and you can see how much the other one had grown. The other one was absolutely huge, loving the hot, humid temperatures in the Polytunnel. So that's a good example of how hard it is to grow stuff here in Scotland. You can see if you put a tropical plant outside in Scotland, especially this far north, right up by Inverness, we're at 58 degrees north here, so the same as kind of like many parts of Alaska, almost as far north as Anchorage, about as far north as like Moscow, I think. So this far north, tropical plants outside, even in midsummer, they're going to struggle. We only get temperatures about 16 degrees in the summer. We don't get much into the 20s. We get a few days of temperatures above 20, but it's very few anyway. So you can see how little growth that the plants put on, really struggling. But in a polytunnel where it stays nice and warm, the growth's absolutely phenomenal. It does really well. So that's why polytunnels are really good in this part of the world, and it's kind of essential if you want to grow anything like tomatoes or squashes or anything tropical. You have to grow in the polytunnel. So here are the basil plants of my parents. They're starting to perk up. They were struggling a bit, but they're doing quite well. We've got Cobra beans here, which will soon shoot up and cover this because the Cobra beans grow really fast. Interestingly, we've also got some self-seeded tomatoes here. In our compost there seems to be a lot of tomato seeds, so tomato plants seem to pop up all over the garden. These ones are interesting. These little dwarf tomatoes that have self-seeded, they're the bush variety, so you can see they don't need any pruning, and they'll just stay quite small, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of fruit we get on them. But the other tomatoes, I'll tell you a bit more about them. So these are the unused ones, as I was saying. Some kind of plum tomato, you can see there. Nice plums, tomatoes starting to form. So yeah, all the tomatoes in here, I think I sowed them in January, February time. And I actually managed to plant them in the polytunnel in March, which is incredibly early for Scotland, especially as this isn't a heated polytunnel. I've got my thermal store, which I pump all the hot air underground. That stores heat overnight, and then it pumps it back. So it stores the heat, in the day for the night time, so it pumps the heat back out at night to keep it warm. And that seems to have worked quite well. I also have this little sunken pit where I grew them for about a month, but now that was extra protection, but that sunken pit is now just got all the plants in it. And I'll put a little link in the description of what this looked like when I was building it and the tomatoes in it. So here's some other tomato plants. You can see, I'm not sure what variety these are. I think parents have got labels somewhere, but I can't see them at the moment. But this is a cherry tomato. You see lots starting to crop in there. And this one's Tigerella. You can see it's got that kind of tiger stripe appearance. And these are actually getting pretty close to being ready. These will be ripe probably in a couple of 2 or 3 weeks. They're about the size that they get, and this should kind of redden up soon and be ripe. So you can see they're doing quite nice. So over here is the first squash plant we planted. I think this one was planted out in about March, April, whereas the other ones on the other side, which you can see are still really small, I think they were planted out maybe just a few weeks ago. And it's amazing. It's only the beginning of June, and this squash plant has already taken over this half of the polytunnel, and it's not supposed to be harvestable until quite a bit later in the year. I think they say in this variety you're supposed to harvest it kind of August, September, October time. So it's the first week in June, pretty much, or the middle of June now, and as you can see, there's already fruit forming. So we got a nice squash there, which is just starting to grow up nicely. So I reckon we'll be at the end of June we'll be cropping. So that's really advanced, and you can just see how many flowers there are. There's loads of lovely, nice big female flowers. So these will be cropping, it looks like, for quite a long time, and we should be getting lots of nice squash plants from them. So coming round, got a few more basil plants here. This is still quite empty. I think my parents might plant a couple more things in this spot. We got a little aubergine. The aubergines seem to always struggle up here. I don't think it's quite hot and sunny enough for aubergines in Scotland, even in a polytunnel. Coming over here, we've got a mixture of plants. Looks like the cucumber is going to take over the whole lot, so it's going to be a bit squishy, because you can see here the tomato plant hasn't got a huge amount of space, and this pepper down here has already been swamped by the cucumber, so they'll probably have to cut off some of the leaves from the cucumber to make space. And we've got some more peppers and cucumbers over here, so you can see the tomato there, pepper is that plant, and the cucumber is this huge thing that's taken over. And you can see there's lots of little cucumbers starting to form. There's one here, one over there, and we've got a decent sized one back here if I can find it. There we are. That's quite a good size, that one, if we can get the leaf out of the way. There we are. See, that's nice size, and they crop really well. The cucumbers do really well. They did last year, so I think my parents will be getting a good lot of cucumbers. And then here, more tomatoes. You can see they're doing really well. And these peppers are doing much better. These are at the sunniest end of and the hottest end of the polytunnel. Because there's a bit of a slope, and it tends to be the door on this side that we keep open. This end tends to be a bit hotter, because all the hot air seems to travel up from that end of the polytunnel into this end, just because this is the south side and also the highest end of the polytunnel, because there's a slight slope. So everything on this end of the polytunnel seems to grow better, gets a lot more heat and a lot more light. And you can see that with these peppers, they're really quite lush, looking quite nice. This should be cropping soon. You can see it's already got a flower on that one just there, and lots of flower buds coming. So they should be getting some nice bell peppers. These are just normal bell peppers. They got one called, I think it was King of the North. There's a variety which is particularly suited to cold northern climates, so it should do well here in Scotland, particularly with the extra heat from the polytunnel as well. So yeah, I'm not sure what these tomatoes are. I think they're small plums, maybe baby plums. You can see there the kind of shape. It's definitely a plum type tomato. And then finally we have sweet potatoes. We never tried sweet potatoes in Scotland before. You definitely need to grow them in a polytunnel or a greenhouse in Scotland, but they're growing quite well. These ones are still establishing. They're quite young. They're just taken from little slips, which is basically just cuttings. And this one here is definitely taken off. You can see it's getting nice long shoots, and they should take over this whole area. And we're also going to train them up this wire here, and that will help save the space, and it'll make sure that they get more light, because if they just grow flat, they don't get as much light as if they grow flat and upright. So we're going to grow them upright as well as along the ground. Hopefully we'll get a good crop of sweet potatoes. I've also got my mum's sweet peas here. As you can see, considering it's early June, I don't think you'll find many places in the UK in early June that has sweet peas this high. They were actually taller. They were right up to the top of the polytunnel, but I've cut some of the tops off. You can see there's one there I've cut off because it was just getting too tall. So, and this one here we cut the top off because we want to encourage more branching lower down, get the ones lower down to start flowering as well. But these are amazing, these sweet peas. We keep getting, my mum probably harvests 20 flowers every day, and just, you cut all the flowers off and the next day there's another 20 flowers, so, or flower spikes should I say, like this. So the house is full of sweet peas. It's working really well, and that should flower all summer long, to be honest. And as it goes on, it should even get more flowers. I reckon it'll be 30, 40, maybe even 50 flowers come midsummer. So that's doing really well. And last year they kept going into December, so this will be a whole year's worth of sweet peas. And of course they smell amazing, so the whole polytunnel at the moment smells quite nice with sweet peas. So that's the polytunnel. I'll take you quickly now to the greenhouse. Not a lot in the greenhouse, but it's still interesting to see. So this is the greenhouse. So you can see it's quite a big greenhouse. It's a bit bigger than your average 6 by or 4 by 6, whatever the average is. I think this one's probably maybe 6 foot, 8 foot by maybe 10 or 12 foot. I'm not sure, we've never actually measured it, but we were quite lucky in getting it donated. So the south is in this direction, so this is why this side's all glass. This side is north, and there's a stone wall behind it. So to save on glass, because we've got bad winds and we often lose panes of glass here, so we've put this with wood, which helps just to insulate it a bit. And we've also put a lot of these plastic containers full of water, and they heat up and they just kind of maintain a little bit of heat over the night. Also with these two big black containers, they also store a little bit of heat. It store much heat. It's not like the polytunnel where how the thermal store. It's not going to store much heat at all, so it's not going to heat it by 5 or 6 degrees like the polytunnel does, but it just keeps off maybe 1 degree of extra heat. That 1 degree extra heat is just about enough to keep off any of the light frost that we might get in early spring. But it shouldn't get any frost at this time of year anyway. So starting on the left, some more tomato plants. Not too sure what my parents are growing here. Looks like some kind of brassica. And then here we have more of the aubergines. Aubergines are doing better in the greenhouse. That's because the greenhouse actually gets a lot hotter than the polytunnel. And it gets a lot more light because they're clear panes, whereas the polytunnel is like a opaque. But it does get a lot colder at night, so, and it's a lot drier in here, so it's kind of suits these better, but it doesn't suit some of the other tropical plants better. Because the aubergines are more of a desert plant, so they like really hot, dry conditions, whereas the squashes and the tomatoes prefer a bit more humidity, so they're in the polytunnel. But they seem to be doing quite well here, a lot better than the polytunnel. They're starting to perk up. There's a lot of aphids, as you can see, but there is parasitic wasps. You can see that one's kind of gone like a zombie. And there's also hoverfly larvae in here, so the aphid problem should be dealt with pretty soon. Over here is the cycad. I keep wanting to take this back to Edinburgh, but to be honest I don't have space for it. This is a house plant that I've had since I was probably about 10 years old. Bought it in Amsterdam in the flower markets just as a little tiny bulb, kind of like ball. It had no roots on it, no leaves. It was probably about the size of a tennis ball, maybe a golf ball. Sat in my house for 3 years, didn't grow at all for 3 years. I thought it was dead, so I pulled it up to get rid of it, and I noticed a little root coming out the bottom, so I left it. So I think it was about 1 year in that I poured it up, and then 2 years that I waited again. So after 3 years, it eventually grew 3 tiny little leaves, and every now and again it grows more leaves, and it's just slowly swelling up the base. So it doesn't really like it here in Scotland, but I think it's doing a bit better now. It's in the greenhouse, and it looks like it needs to grow some new leaves again because the leaves are getting quite yellow. But this, in good conditions, this does grow leaves every year, but there was a spell when it was inside the house and didn't get a lot of sunshine. I think it was about 5 years without growing any leaves. I was getting a bit worried, but last year it grew some leaves, but as you see they're going to yellow again, so maybe you'll grow some more this year, maybe next year. Over here is lemon verbena. Amazing smell, best lemon smell I think there is in any plant. It smells like lemon sherbet, really sharp yellow, lemon smell, much better than lemon balm. I think this is by far the best lemon scented plant you can get in the garden. Lovely plant as well, you can use it in teas and things. Got some odd rocket here because my parents were trying to grow rocket in winter, because obviously you can't grow outside here in Scotland. So lots more tomatoes, looks like more plums. You can see plum shaped tomatoes down there, so they'll be good for passata sauces and stuff. I'm not sure what these are. They look like more plum tomatoes, and these will grow up right up to the roof. Last year these were right up to the roof. And over here is our squash. So these are courgette plants. I think they've got 4 courgette plants, which is plenty, because courgettes just produce so many fruits. So you can see here we've got a little fruit starting to set. So my parents always seem to have issues with their courgettes. Whenever I've grown them, they've been alright, but I think maybe it's just a bit too humid in here, or there's not enough pollinators, I'm not sure. But what seems to happen is the flowers kind of go mouldy and the fruit doesn't pollinate properly and just kind of rots off. But hopefully they'll have more success this year. You can see the plants are really healthy. I think they weren't planted out until about a month ago, but the squash are always like this. The squash plants grow so fast. Courgettes especially, they just take over. So they've got huge leaves and doing well. They've actually cut a lot of the leaves off because you couldn't get in here before because they were just growing over the path. And lastly, we've got a big sunflower in here. Didn't plant it, it's self-seeded. But our parents just thought it would be nice to let it to grow. As you can see, it's already hitting the glass. So what I think they're going to do is going to bend it over. It's going to grow up diagonally, and there's a hole in the glass here, and that will it'll grow out that hole in the glass, luckily, or hopefully. There we are, nice little bumblebee, help with the pollination of our tomatoes. It is handy to have a little bit of a hole so the bees can come in and out. They do get lost sometimes, but they generally do find their way back out. That one's a bit lost at the moment, but there is a hole up here. And what they tend to do is they fly up to the highest point and they'll find that hole and get out. So there we are, that's the Polytunnel and the Greenhouse tour. I'll hopefully be back later this year. I'm not sure how long it'll be, but try and give you guys an update if I can, and by then there should be thousands of tomatoes. Every year my parents are growing tomatoes, there's always been too many, and everything grows really well up here. We've done a lot more with the soil preparation this year, a lot more feeding, so we should get an even better crop than the previous years. And as you can see, this is only 13th of June, so it's about the middle of June, and everything's really far ahead. Not so much here in the greenhouse, but certainly in the polytunnel, everything's really a lot further ahead than it should be for this time of year. So I'm thinking it's going to be a good long growing season. Going to get some nice crops.